Welcome back to the fourth and last part of the multi-track mode tutorial. So far we've learned the basics, explored the amazing rhythm generators to create compelling sequences, and now we'll dive into the world of internal modulation, to go even further or creating amazing, organic and lively sequences. If you missed our previous tutorials on the core of multi-track mode, you can find the links in the description for you to check it out. Modulation is a powerful resource to create much more compelling rhythms and melodies, adding up movement and variation to your patterns. You have LFOs, mod lanes, the CV input, and the MIDI mappings as source for modulation for your multi-track mode. Let's start with the LFO by pressing the LFO button. A nice example of LFO usage is to add randomization modulation to internal parameters like gate or pitch to add variation. Let's try it with our hat's velocity, by picking velocity from the list and set to taste the wave, rate and amount. Start with small increments to hear the modulation affect the parameter. But as you can hear, the LFO is affecting the whole 8 tracks. To just affect the hat's track, the LFO can be enabled or disabled on individual tracks in multi-track mode. When holding the LFO button, the first column will light up orange. Press the pads from the respective tracks to stop LFO from affecting it, and just leave the hat's track being modulated. The selection is independent for LFO 1 and LFO 2. As explained in previous videos, you can also add variations with the random perform. However, the LFO can help when you want less chaotic results. You can also use the LFO to modulate the pitch of a melodic sequence, for example. Let's use a complex waveform for the effect. Remember that when changing the amount of the LFO, each value is a semitone, so start with small increments to hear the changes. If you like this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing. It motivates us to make more videos. Let's jump into the mod lanes. In multi-track mode there are 8 mod lanes, 1 per track in 2 banks of 4, instead of the usual set of 4 from the other sequencers. Mod lanes are useful to automate or manually modulate internal parameters. Hold the mod button and tap any of the rows on the grid. This will automatically show the modulation lane of the newly selected track. In the mod menu, hold any step and the screen will show the modulation value of that step and the selected track. Turn the first encoder to change the track, plus you can use the fourth encoder to adjust the modulation value of that step. In this example, we are going to add gate variations to the hi-hats, which is our track 4. So let's configure the hi-hat mod lane for this track. Press Shift plus the fourth encoder to enter the mod lane 4 settings. Set internal modulation to gate and set the max amount 100. Since we don't want to send any MIDI CC messages, disable CC destination as well, selecting off from the list. Exit the modulation settings, and now you can use the fourth encoder to set the amount of modulation you wish. Or for example, press Shift plus Random button to get random values. It's also possible to draw your own modulation on the grid like this. Remember, you can quickly change the speed of modulation lane by doing Shift and multiply by 2 or Shift plus divide by 2. The start and end points of this modulation lane can be independent from the sequencer track. Now, let's modulate our Euclidean generator with a mod lane. This is a powerful generative mode to get constant new and ever-evolving patterns. The node triggers manually entered won't be effective. We enter the track settings and pick up our first internal destination as Euclidean pulses, and disable the CC destination. And make sure to adjust the mod max. In this case, since our Euclidean pattern will have 16 steps, you have to pick a value that doesn't exceed the pattern length. I am going to pick 9 as max mod. This way the modulation lane will add no more than 9 pulses to our Euclidean pattern to have the modulation going. If you exceed the max value, it will be constantly clipping and the modulation will have no variation. Go back, draw your own modulation curve, change the time division to 1/4 and press play to hear the modulation taking effect. See how new pulses are added to the sequence. The new triggers generated by adding modulation are represented on the grid in orange color when the sequencer is running. To add even more variation, it's also possible to modulate the rotation parameter. That will rotate the generated pulses in the range of steps determined by length. In order for rotation modulation to take effect, there must be a modulation going on over pulses. For this, you can, for example, have a LFO modulating the Euclidean rotation parameter or a mod lane. I'm going to set an LFO to modulate the rotation. Go to LFO and set your destination to Euclidean rotation. Pick the wave and time division and set an amount following the same principle, so incrementing little steps to hear the differences. Let's explore another cool way to add variations with the drum pattern and the internal modulations. Start by configuring snare track in mod lane 2 internal destination to snare density to create some kind of filling pattern on the last bar. For this lane, we are going to set the time division to 1/4 and add modulation in the last 4 steps. Listen and see how the new hits are added depending on the density value. And to make this even more interesting, we can play with the subtle variations of X. You can change it by hand like this, or something that I love to do is set a mod lane to keep changing the pattern on certain sections. I'll show you using the same principle as before. remember to limit your max mod values to avoid clipping. If you're on pattern 100, you only have 27 patterns left to vary, so your limit will be 27 if you wish to use the rest of the full range you have. I encourage you to play with Drum Pattern Generator to create amazing and interesting rhythms. The random generator is also a very nice way to create interesting rhythmic and melodic patterns in multi-track mode. To access the random generator, hold Shift and double press the random button to enter the menu. Same as the other sequencer modes, random generator is a destructive process. It works from the start to the end of the pattern. Unless you set steps to fixed or locked in the logic conditions, this way the random generator will not introduce variation to those steps. Although undo, we'll return to the previous sequence. In the random generator screen, you can decide various parameters such as the range of notes to span, the amount of randomness, the density of notes, the amount of tied notes, and a few more. For drum rhythmic random patterns, it's best to not put a value in bias and range, as it will randomize the notes of the tracks and might affect the pitch of your sound. Let's add 2 more random generated patterns. Thanks for having joined me on this journey of the multi-track mode. As always, any questions or doubts, leave a comment on the video. And join our Discord community and forum, where you can hang with other amazing users of the OXI One and share cool new ideas. Thanks for watching. Until the next one, bye!